Hello everyone and welcome back to another video where today, well, I was going to be dedicating this entire video to Trump's letter to Norway over the Greenland deal, and that is still going to be where we start, but overnight he has done several other things that are also worth discussing, but they all fit into the wider context of Trump destabilizing Europe and its positions. So we're going to get right into it, and I also want to say thank you so much for the support on this channel. We've almost reached 400 subscribers at the time of recording this on the first day of this channel being up, so I'm incredibly grateful for that. Yeah, this has been a fun undertaking for me, and I plan on keeping it up to date and carrying on as is. So yeah, let's dive right into it. So as many of you have probably seen by now, Donald Trump sent a letter to Norway over Greenland and their support of Greenland, and particularly his, frankly, ridiculous tantrum about not getting the Nobel Peace Prize, and this was confirmed by Norway to be a legitimate letter as well. Dear Jonas, considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will always be predominant, but can now think of what is good and proper for the United States of America. Denmark cannot protect the land from Russia or China, and why do they have a right of ownership anyway? There are no written documents, it's only that a boat landed there a few hundred years ago, but we had boats landing there also. I have done more for NATO than any other person since its founding, and now NATO should do something for the United States. The world is not secure unless we have complete and total control of Greenland. Thank you, President DJT. And yes, this was confirmed by Norway as a genuine letter. Now, luckily, the people over at Sky News have done a full fact check of this letter for our convenience, so we can point out how ridiculous this is. So starting off with his claim that Norway decided not to give him the Nobel Peace Prize. By the way, that's what it's about. That's what this whole thing is about. The reason why he is siding against them and the reason why he is, acting more out against Greenland is because he didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize. He is a giant egotist and maniac. This is why I kind of found Starmer's comments about how, we just need to protect the mature alliance between the UK and US to be so pointless, because it's not a mature alliance. There are not level heads involved in this. The person at the centre of this is not a reasonable nor normal individual. This is the type of individual who will actively support military action because he didn't get a prize. So yeah, dear Jonas, considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize, you can see here, and neither Norway's Prime Minister nor its government directly chooses who gets the Nobel Peace Prize. Instead, it's chosen by the Norwegian Nobel Committee, a 5-member committee appointed by the country's parliament. So yeah, they don't even have control over who gets the Peace Prize. And even then, the idea of throwing your toys out the pram over this and basically saying it's a reason not to pursue peace as the primary directive is insane. Stopped 8 wars, this is something he has repeatedly claimed and has been repeatedly debunked. While he has received praise for helping ending nearly 40 years of conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan, other peace deals President Trump has been involved in have proved less effective. Fighting between Cambodia and Thailand resumed after a peace deal was brokered by countries, including America, last year. As well as those, Trump has previously claimed to have solved the following conflicts: Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, Israel and Iran, Israel and Hamas, India and Pakistan, Egypt and Ethiopia, Serbia and Kosovo. So yeah, once again, just kind of a lie there. Obviously, Israel and Hamas is still very much ongoing, as is Israel, Iran, and others. Carrying on again, Denmark cannot protect the land from Russia or China. Peter Viggo Jacobsen, an associate professor at the Royal Danish Defence College, told Sky News that there is no security threat to Greenland. There is no acute problem to solve. The Chinese and Russian ships that he keeps talking about are a figment of his imagination. The Chinese and the Russians apparently aren't threatening it. And in fact, Vladimir Putin, I believe, came out and supported American annexation on Greenland. So, yeah. And even then, the idea that he is afraid of Russian influence when he has invited Vladimir Putin onto his board of peace is insane. And we're going to do a whole separate video on the border peace stuff because it is just, it's mad. And then this is my favourite bit. There are no written documents. It's only a boat landed there a few hundred years ago, but we had boats landing there also. Sky News. Actually, it looks like there are. Danish rights to Greenland were confirmed by the US in 1916, and there's a document bearing the US Secretary of State's signature to prove it. There you go. But then also this idea of some boats landed there hundreds of years ago. The first Nordic presence in Greenland dates back to Eric the Red, a Norse Viking banished from Iceland who sought a new future there around the 10th century. But also, my favourite thing about this is if we're going by this logic that, oh, well, some boats landed there a few hundred years ago, so therefore you don't own the territory. Donald, you do realise what country you're representing, right? By your logic, we should have America back. You know what I mean? It's insane. Or at least, you know, the original 13 colonies. And I don't know, I guess France gets everything they sold off in the Louisiana Purchase. Like, I don't know. It's insane. I think the fact that it's the United States of America saying this just makes it funnier because it's like, that's literally the entire reason your country exists. I have done more for NATO than any other person. Spending by NATO allies has risen as a result of President Trump's insistence, but his critics say his disagreements with leaders of NATO allies has left the alliance more fragile. I mean, yeah, it's hard to really disagree with that when basically Europe is planning retaliatory tariffs, the UK is standing against American action in Greenland, and various other things as well. It's hard to really say that he strengthened NATO at this stage since its founding, and now NATO should do something for the United States. And then they point out quite rightly that the only time Article 5 has ever been invoked, Article 5 being the part of the NATO Charter that says an attack on one is an attack on all, was of course invoked on the United States' behalf during the aftermath of 9/11. It has only been triggered once in the entire history of NATO by the US. After 9/11, NATO members answered the call and fought alongside the US in Afghanistan. Among the NATO troops who died were 43 from Denmark, almost exactly the ratio of deaths to population that the US experienced in the conflict. So yeah, the one time that Article 5 has been used by NATO, triggered by NATO, was by the US. But of course, NATO has never done anything for the US. It's worth saying as well that NATO is basically the reason for American global hegemony, because it is basically, they are the head of that military bloc. It's one of the key parts of their power. So to say that it doesn't do anything for America is kind of laughable. The world is not secure unless we have total control of Greenland. Sky News military analyst Michael Clark says that the US forcibly taking the territory would effectively end the credibility of NATO as a collective alliance. Absolutely. What effect this would have on the ambitions of countries like China and Russia is an open question. Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. The idea that, like, Russia and China are going to look at this and be like, oh, well, that makes it safer, rather than take the lesson of, oh, bigger nations can just take what they want, is also kind of insane. Worth noting as well that, as far as I'm aware, tariffs on Russia by the US are still at 0%, so it shows who his friends really are in this. But then, overnight, more stuff emerged. President Trump, on his Truth Social page, called out the UK directly over its deal to sell the Chagos Islands. Shockingly, our brilliant NATO ally, the United Kingdom, is currently planning to give away the island of Diego Garcia, the site of a vital US military base, to Mauritius, and to do so for no reason whatsoever. There is no doubt China and Russia have noticed this act of total weakness. These are international powers who only recognise strength, which is why the United States of America under my leadership is now, after only 1 year, respected like never before. The UK giving away extremely important land is an act of great stupidity, and is another in a very long line of national security reasons why Greenland has to be acquired. Denmark and European allies have to do the right thing. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. Now, the thing about this is, regardless of your opinion on the Chagos deal, Trump signed off on it as recently as May. Here's a statement from Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, saying US supports UK and Mauritius agreement on Chagos Archipelago. Now, as far as I understand it, the main reason the UK wants to is handing over the islands, the Chagos Islands, back over, is largely because it was ruled by several international courts that the UK had no legal right to separate the islands from Mauritius before the former British colony became independent in the 1960s. This is from the BBC. So that is the reason why the UK is basically offering the islands back to Mauritius. Now, there has been criticism of this deal, mainly from Chagosians themselves, who criticised their lack of say in the handover of the territory. But whatever your thoughts are on the Chagos deal, and you can be for it or against it, it's important to frame this in the wider context, which is essentially Trump trying to deliberately fracture and deliberately destabilise its European allies who have sided against him on Greenland. Last night also, Trump said that he will impose 200% tariffs on French wine and champagne over France's intentions to decline the invitation to join his Board of Peace. Let me repeat that again. He is threatening 200% tariffs on French wine and champagne if they don't join his little club, which is absolutely insane. Trump overnight also posted a private message with NATO chief Mark Rutte, where, among other things, Mark Rutte said he will use media engagements in Davos to highlight your work, basically showing that the Secretary General of NATO is fully basically capitulating and is in line with the president. But also he posted a message from Emmanuel Macron of France saying, "My friend, we are totally in line on Syria. We can do great things on Iran. I don't understand what you're doing on Greenland." This is a message from Emmanuel Macron to President Trump. And then finally, he has been posting images like this to his Truth Social, which depicts a meeting of Trump and all the other kind of European allies with a map of America that has control of Canada within its borders. So that's what it's really about. What this is really about, the Chagos deal, I don't think Trump really cares about the Chagos deal particularly. After all, he signed off on it as recently as May. The real reason he is now backtracking on it, in my opinion, is the same reason why he's threatening tariffs against France, further tariffs against France, if they don't join his Board of Peace. It's all about European destabilization because they didn't support his annexation plans of Greenland. That's what it's all about. And meanwhile, Trump's PR manager in the UK, Nigel Farage, saying, "Thank goodness Trump has vetoed the surrender of the Chagos Islands." Now again, you can have whatever opinion on the Chagos deal that you want. Saying "thank goodness Trump" after he has just been threatening a NATO ally and has just last night been posting an image of Canada as part of the United States, basically threatening, once again, a takeover of Canada, which is not only a NATO ally and a close ally of the United Kingdom, but is also a member of the Commonwealth, is insane. You know, for all the talk of British patriotism, it doesn't seem to really matter where the United States is concerned. Like, to say this after he has just announced tariffs on the UK over us not supporting the annexation of Greenland, and also posting stuff like this, I think to me shows where the allegiance of people like Farage really is. It's not with the UK, it is firmly in American interests. But that's all the latest on this. I'm going to be giving you further updates as we go along. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to give it a like. Let me know your thoughts down below, and I will see you soon.